Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever the case may be. It is the Aloha Hour. I am your humble host, Mike S. Miller, and I am here with the Silver Fox of Common State. I'm going to make that stick. Edwin Boyette.
And it is beautiful to see all of you again. Thank you. Thank you, all you good folks out in YouTube land who allowed us to come into your households this evening.
Yeah. So I'm going to be drawing while we do this.
All right.
I need to get us, get Lone Star done.
Let me do the normal thing. Let me load up the chat so we can interact, and then let me share the sound so we can share this out on the Twitters.
And for those who are just joining us, which is everybody because we just started, Netflix put out a new commercial today. They've got a project coming out called MANIAC, and it's got Jonah Hill, who apparently has lost 12 layers of fat.
Yep.
And oh my gosh, her name was just in Emma Stone.
Emma Stone.
Emma Stone. And
so I got to ask you, do gingers have souls?
It's such a funny question.
It's an appropriate question, though, perhaps.
Yeah, but I mean, you like you watch Brits and Brits talking, like comedians or whatever, and it's like boy, they still really harbor this, and they do it tongue in cheek, but you know they kind of, it's still there, the resentment towards the gingers. It's like this bizarre racism against.
I'm descended from Scottish stock, and obviously somewhere along the way some Celtic stock. And when I was a child and a young man, before my hair started going gray, if I got enough sun, my hair would pretty much turn like a light red, not a crazy fire engine red, but yeah, I had a little bit of that gene, so I have maybe 95% of a soul.
Yeah, I would get, when I was younger, I would have like little blonde hairs, some red hairs, just like a little. You could tell that I had all this crazy gene pool, but it's all kind of darkened in now. I mean, I was blonde as a kid.
When
I was in Hawaii, the neighbor kids all called me Blondie. Hey, Blondie. And then, obviously, Isaac maintained his blondness. We were always wondering, because Micah darkened up. He's kind of a dirty blonde, light brown now. But yeah, we were always wondering if Isaac would maintain. And so far, he's 12 years old. You're 12, right, Isaac?
Yeah,
11. He's 11. He'll be 12 soon.
Chant seems to be in agreement that gingers do, in fact, not have a soul.
You guys are mean. You guys are mean. Although there are certain gingers I could attest to that truth. There's a but that's on a case-by-case basis. I can't cast aspersions on the entire race of gingers. They are their own race, after all.
So Twitter was quiet today.
Oh, man. Hey.
Speaking about those without souls.
I have pretty much practically everyone on the opposite side of that conversation muted. So my Twitter feed is just filled up with half of a conversation. And it's like so frustrating. It almost makes me want to unmute those basket case people, but no.
Yeah, to what end though? I mean, it's interesting to engage with them, but it goes around in circles. Yeah. It goes around in circles because I was
a bunch of circle jerks.
Not circle jerks. I was debating with presumably a young man, and he took you to task. And he
Not
said,
famous?
No. What was his name? Andy something. Andy something. I don't want to make him.
Oh, yeah, I muted him a while ago, so I don't know what he said. You can
Yeah,
tell me what you like, but
but it was kind of funny because he was so this young fella on Twitter was trying to scold Mike Miller for not being polite to this person who had tried to target him for harm and who had tried to imply that Mike was this horrible homophobic bigoted Nazi. And so this young fella named Andy, his major complaint that was that Mike was just being real mean spirited about the abuse he was receiving. He was just being really mean about being called a Nazi. Mike, why can't you be nice when you're called a Nazi? What's wrong with you?
I try.
Oh, these
What,
guys.
what was so rude? I just asked. There's a person on Twitter who honestly looks kind of like a dude.
Well, now there's this thing
I'm not to say that she's unattractive or any of that stuff. I don't want to do that. I just think she's got very manly features. And I saw that one picture, and her hand was freaking huge, and I'm like,
yeah. Now, if you're a lady and you're not like 6'10" and your hands are almost the same size as mine, and I have pretty large hands, it kind of makes you wonder.
it's not common.
Yeah, and if you have like if your jaw makes like 90-degree angles, like you've just got that big old, I'm gonna get me some mustard and biscuits. Like if you got that kind of jaw.
Everybody called it slang blade.
Yeah. I reckon I'm gonna have to kill you. Yeah. Yeah, if you got that jaw and you got some big old whoa, coming at you with them, you just wonder. You're curious. Yeah.
And then I mean, obviously the way she puts herself forward, it certainly wouldn't be out of the question that she would she virtue signals that direction anyways.
Yeah.
And so I just asked, and I said it very politely. And, I'm like, I don't mean to be offensive, but I'm just curious, is this person trans? Because, that community seems to want everyone on Earth to know when they are trans, but then apparently it was offensive for me.
Okay, yeah. All right. So,
did she get offended?
I'm going to be honest. I muted her about 4 days ago.
Yeah, me too.
Ethan suggested I should mute her, and I was like, you know what? After some reflection, I was like, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. Yeah. I'll mute her. And so here's the weird part. Within our little micro community, you've got all these people talking about trans rights, that there needs to be more trans representation in the creators for comic books, and then there needs to be more representation for trans characters in comic books. Okay, and I'm not going to dispute that. That's fine. But in order for this to happen, there has to be like some sort of communication. Somebody has to be saying, yes, I am trans, and somebody who's hiring or in editorial has to be asking, are you trans? Is this character trans? There has to be some sort of communication. And so if people seem to be very eager to communicate, or some people on Twitter seem to be very eager to communicate this information about themselves.
Desperate even.
If it's not impolite, or if there's no social norm saying that establishes that it's impolite to communicate this information, and they're also simultaneously saying they want more representation in media and this and that, why is it by default? Why is it rude to ask? And I thought somebody might take the time, because I asked that. Somebody told you it was rude, and I said, okay, but why is it rude? Can you step through that? And I got all these I can't even answers, and I got like,
because they can't even.
why is it your business what's in somebody's fundaroos? And that's it, it's not. I don't care what's in your fundaroos, but if
Until
you're
we get
saying
back to a place as a society where that's the case, where it's to stop sticking your underoos in our face.
yeah. But so there's a conflict here. You understand? Yeah, can you see it
No,
too?
there's
That
a hypocrisy there.
yeah.
That's what it's not a conflict. It's an absolute hypocrisy.
What I thought was kind of funny, and I didn't get around to asking it, is they're very insistent. They're very insistent on using the correct pronouns. And you know what, Mike?
And that's another thing. She puts it in her thing. She puts her pronouns in her thing. And that's another reason I asked.
Yeah. And so if people are very insistent on being called, he, her, they, them, she, zers, a, whatever pronoun, and then I say, and if you don't use those pronouns, they lose their minds, right?
Yes, it's a hate crime.
And so these word choices are very important. And then I say, hey, maybe you shouldn't call people Nazi. I don't think that that's their approved pronoun. And people lose their mind. What do you mean we can't call you bigots Nazis? You're Nazis for saying we can't call you Nazis.
Yeah. I think you trying to ask for reason out of these people is unreasonable.
Yeah, and that's why I had to put some of these people on mute, because I'm willing to go in there and engage here and there, but after a while it is beyond tiresome. It's beyond tiresome. It's like asking my dog's opinion on politics. If I ask her enough, she might make a noise at me or maybe even drop a deuce, but it's not gonna there's not gonna be a whole lot of intellectual content there. And that's kind of where I felt like I was at today, trying to talk physics with monkeys.
Yep. That's oh no, you can't say monkeys because that's racist. Nazi.
Oh.
You'll get fired from the #1 TV show on ABC.
Lemurs.
Lemurs.
Lemurs? Is that if I, oh, hang on. What is the one of the little creatures that'll follow each other over the cliffs? Lemmings.
Lemmings. That is what they are.
Yeah.
That is exactly what they are.
Yeah, and Joe Moroni, you've got a good point. You can fight. You can enter into a fight, a cage match with a naked hobo, right?
Analogy.
You can do this. You can do this, and you may win the fight. But do you really? Do you really? After fighting and surviving a fight with a naked hobo, are you really going to feel like a winner?
Depends. Do you eat his corpse afterwards?
What? You've been streaming with Nasser too much. All right. Oh, let me show that image that Art T. Bear did today before we get too serious. Let me share my screen a doodle.
If you want to share some stuff, I'll mention it and you can bring it up. Like the t-shirt design.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, let me load that up too then.
Guys, I got a time and a quote for dog tags today. So I'm pretty sure we can do the dog tags. Maybe I'll do that at 50,000.
All right. Did you post the t-shirt on Twitter? You did, didn't
you? T-shirts on Twitter.
Sometimes it gets kind of funky in Facebook. Yeah. Let's see.
Right, let me click to here.
Let me click into the old Black Chicks universe. Let's see. Here we go. Dooba. I am Gen X, but I think technologically I am a boomer. Oh, that's the old design though. Hang on, let me go over to Facebook and pull the. Let's see. Let me pull out the t-shirt because you put the good one in the Facebook group.
Did I?
Yeah. Has everybody joined? Everybody that's on Facebook, have you joined the official Lone Star Squadron fan group? I hope you have. All right. So let's start with the shirt. Let me share my entire screen. You are screen sharing. And so we'll start in the
There we go.
official Lone Star Squadron. Look at this bad boy. Let's see if we can make
Crypto Fashion said they're going to get these done with the sleeves for $25.
Oh, that's not bad, man.
The sleeves. He could do a cheaper version without the sleeves, but I don't know. It'd only be a few dollars cheaper, like 22 or something like that. So
I think it looks better. It looks better with the two flags.
yeah,
I think
on the sleeve, the flag, Texas and the U.S. of A. You guys dig? You guys don't care about getting the cheaper one, right? Make a cheaper eagle. Really? You want to save $3? That's really
yeah. So this is the
no Rhaegar. It's not for sale yet. We're setting it up at Crypto Fashion. So I will make an announcement here and on Twitter when it's there.
All right.
The bird is too much detailed. Okay.
The official Lone Star Squadron fan group. It is a closed group, so we try and keep the wackadoodles out. All right, so this is, and y'all probably seen Art T Bear on a couple of streams now. This is his version of Lone Star, and let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger because this is quite nice.
Yeah, and that's the giveaway. So a young man, I put his name up here somewhere, but I already sent Art his shipping information, so Art will be mailing that directly to the winner of the giveaway.
Yeah.
So, whoop.
That was very well done.
Thank you, Artie Bear.
All right, I'm going to take us off screen share. And pop back in the chat. Yeah, I do like that quite a bit. Cross Comics don't want to wear an American flag. Well, it's kind of part and parcel of Lone Star.
Why wouldn't you want to wear an American flag? Oh, he's Canadian.
Oh, I see. I
don't want to get beat up. I see. You know what you could do? Cut the sleeves off.
Yeah, I guess you could.
I'll talk to him. Maybe we'll make both the versions available.
We'll see. Somebody said you might want to go with a slightly smaller eagle. I'm not sure about that though. I
like it that size.
Yeah. If anything, I wanted the wings coming up on the shoulders like the one
up here. But I think he can only do it under the collar.
Oh, got it.
As high as he can up there.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, if you're on Facebook, please come join our Lone Star Squadron Facebook group. It is moderated by the Countessa of Comicsgate. We have the very best mod, and she does a fantastic job. All right. So you titled this Maniac. And I'm guessing we're not talking about Flashdance.
No. No, it's the and I put it in the description. It's the new Netflix show. Gosh, now I'm all paranoid about even sharing
we might just have to talk about it, yeah, because that was kind of unfortunate where they more or less kind of debilitated that whole stream, yeah?
Yeah. Ridiculous. We were doing it for review purposes. Why would they? I don't know.
I don't know. I forget, were we trying to sell water filters, or were we talking about chemicals changing the genders of frogs?
No, that would be Alex Jones, and we're not doing it.
Okay.
No, but yeah, so I guess guys, you can go watch it. I put the link in the description. What about fair use? Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Why? It was clear, it had to be a bot there had to just be a bot that came in, heard the sounds.
Interesting. Like an algorithmic process. Huh?
Yeah, something. And then like I think that's what Prince did. You know, like so like any video that was on there that even if you had Prince music playing in the background, it would flag it for
Really?
yeah, being taken down. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Prince was ahead of his time.
Wow.
So anyways, this Maniac show asks a question. Well, it doesn't ask a question. It proposes a solution that the mind can be solved or fixed through whatever their process is. And it kind of begs an age-old question. It's like if you could change something wrong with your mind, or it's sort of like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Have you seen that?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. And then I saw elements of, have you seen Cloud Atlas?
I have not seen that one.
Okay, there are also elements of Cloud Atlas in there. And then there are also elements of Inception. Have you seen Inception?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And a little bit of Legion. I don't know if you watch Legion.
Oh, is that the derivative of Charles Xavier's son?
Yeah. Yeah.
How is that? How is it, without getting too far afield? How is that?
Really good. I like it. It's one of my favorite comic based TV shows. So
okay,
really weird. It's really weird, but it's Legion, so it should be.
Okay, now I'm not endorsing Cloud Atlas. I'm just saying in this Netflix series called Maniac, there's elements that are similar. There's elements that are similar about the perception of reality, about connection, about roles, about memories, about the way we perceive and experience reality. Yeah.
So in the commercial, because obviously it's not out yet, so all I can base on is the commercial. It kind of asks the questions: would you take a pill to fix something? Or, well, they say fix, right? That's the word they use, fix.
Yeah, they said fix. They said fix.
Right.
And so all the people that were going there had some kind of mental illness, I think is kind of the way it was sold, yeah? Or some sort of, yeah.
Right. And this kind of, oh boy, I get so freaking hesitant about even taking it where we're going to take it. Because for the first time today, I interacted with Mags Visaggio. And I mentioned, and it was very cordial, honestly. From the things that I've heard previously, I expected it to be a lot more, vitriolic and emotional and stuff. But so man, you're moving my train of thought.
Mags Visaggio.
Mags Visaggio. Isaac, I swear.
the nature of identity. You look.
Yeah. So, oh no. So I mentioned we were talking about that whether it was biological, the nature of two sexes, that it's she's trying to say that it's not scientifically accurate that there are only two sexes, when it's like it's biology. And then she's like, well, what about child psychology and blah blah blah. And I'm just like, look, if your brain, your mind, your neurology, and your body disagree on what your sex is, your body's not wrong, right? Your body's your body. Your DNA doesn't change, and that's how it started. Because somebody, it might have been me, said you can't change your sex, and then she piped in with, "I did. You should try it. It's fun." And then she went on to complain about how painful it was. But
has she had gender? Well, I just heard myself. That may just be a YouTube thing. No, sorry. Has she had gender reassignment surgery?
I don't know. I don't know if she still has her Frankenbeans, but she's taken the hormones to get the boobs. So
it's good old Mr. Man. You can change aesthetic characteristics.
Yeah, and I said, go ahead. That's fine. That's you. If you want to do that, that's fine. But you can't alter your DNA, right? Yeah. You can't change the basic biology of your body. You can only change the chemistry of it through unnatural means. And then I expressed to her that, and out of respect, I will call her her.
Yeah. I don't have an issue with that, to be honest.
Yeah. And partly because she was very polite, and it wasn't, hateful or angry, or if she was angry, she's sure it wasn't. It was a very cordial conversation. So give me respect, I give you respect. This is how it works. So
Well, she actually blocked me after the second exchange.
You were so rude, though. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I took her to task. I said, I would like to show you respect, kindness, and cordiality. What I do need you to do, though, is your past calls to violence, right? Are kind of, this is behavior you need to abandon, because it makes it very hard to feel any empathy for you when you're making these passionate pleas for people to be hurt, assaulted.
I was not aware of any of that.
Yeah.
I was coming at this tabula rasa. All I've ever heard was just a little bit of stuff from Zach. And I don't, I'm not religiously listening to DNC. So.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So the point came up that I told her, look, there is an entire community group of people on Facebook who are former LGBT. Most of them are former trans. And, I mean, you can go there and see that they've happily, turned their lives in a straight direction, so to speak. So this begs the question. It begged the question, would you change? Actually, I didn't even ask. I think she just presumed the question, and she was like, I wouldn't change if I could, because it's so much who I am. It like defines who she is. Which is weird to me, because I mean, yeah, I'm a dude, but when I'm asked to define myself, it's certainly not the first thing I go to. Is it for you? I mean, it's like first on the list of who Mike Miller is, dude.
Okay. So why am I here? I think that's a weird Facebook thing.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm getting like an echo.
I'm getting a tiny little bit on my end too.
Let's see if that clears up. There's different ways that people define their identities, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is the and I understand this distinction between sex and gender is a relatively modern phenomena in the history of man. And so when I say sex, I mean biological sex. There is your sex, male and female. It's pretty much it. Apart from, the few unfortunate souls who are born as hermaphrodites, but it's so statistically rare, it's really not even meaningful to discuss the exception. Yeah. So we have male and female. And then people tend to think of themselves or discuss themselves in terms of their roles, right? And one of those things is relationship roles. So these are relative roles, father, brother, son, uncle, nephew, grandfather. These different relationship roles. And then people also will describe themselves in terms of their religious faith, right? Christian, Baptist, Buddhist, Jew, Mormon, and so forth. people will discuss themselves or describe themselves in regional concepts like, hey, I'm from Hawaii, or I'm from North Carolina, or I'm a Californian, or I'm
American, Japanese, blah blah blah. Yeah.
people, and then people will discuss themselves in terms of their vocation or their career. Hey, I'm Mike Miller. I draw comic books.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah, and so forth. People, and then other people might discuss themselves in terms of their hobbies. Like I'm a D&D nerd. I'm a cryptozoological fetishist, or all these different activities, these human activities that people.
Yes, I'm a conspiracy theory nut job.
And so, but almost all these descriptions are almost all relative, positional, and referential, and they give a description sort of what they are, but they're these symbolic descriptions. They're not really what we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some of these things, some of these identities are very temporary, because there'll come a day when you may not be any of these things. These things will pass from you.
Right.
You can lose a job, you can be separated from family, these things happen. You can move states and so forth. So these are all very, to some degree, these are all temporary descriptors. They don't actually, they only define you in terms of other things, right?
Right.
And so they are not what you are. And they certainly constitute what you are, but they're not what you are. They're shortcuts, symbolic descriptors.
James, Joseph Trent says, James Gunn, I like little kids.
Yes, that is a
wrong.
oh oh man.
Try to keep it PG in here, man. PG.
Trying to keep it PG, and man, we went so deep with some of that stuff. Sometimes you start diving down or going down, and it needs to be contested with here and there. Just maybe not frequently, just because of the psychological cost of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I could have. We probably could have built up this channel quite a bit off of that, but I don't know if you guys noticed. We decided to sort of try to steer clear of it as much as humanly possible.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. So yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So there's all these different things that constitute identity, or someone's sense of identity. How about that? Someone's sense of identity.
Yeah. I would like to ask a young Mags Visaggio, who was first starting to be confused about why she liked things that her little boy body didn't like, or I don't even know at what age she started making this change. There's a little girl that was friends with our kids, totally normal little girl, when I was living up in Portland, and when she became a teenager, she started saying that she was a dude. And so it was like, I know for a fact you didn't act or think or dress like or anything like a little guy when you were a kid. So at some point, somewhere your wiring started to get crossed. And okay, so this is what I asked Mags, because I've seen this in multiple personal relationships that I've seen with people I know who have trans kids.
Right.
The mother takes the head of the household role, and the father or she's not there, or they're divorced or something like that. And the father is, a wonderful, sweet, caregiving person, and basically the father's the nurturer in the family. And so because the natural roles of mother, father are reversed, I tend to think that the girls will imprint on the nurturer because that's their natural desire. And the imprinting on the nurturer gives them this false understanding of who they identify or which parent they identify with. So it's just a theory for me because based on my personal experience. And then I asked Mags, I'm like, was this the situation for you? And the entirety of her answer was no. And I'm like, don't let on any more than you have to. I mean, because I like to, you know, delve and see, because there's obviously a cause for this. This is not a genetic thing, you know. This isn't like if you just I don't know how to say it. It's not freaking genetic. And yeah, you may have, when they do autopsies on trans people, they may have brains that are more functionally, whatever it is, chemically more alike with the way women think. So they'll have like female brains, but that's brains, you know, the chemistry and the synapses and everything, those change over the course of a lifetime based on what you do, how you think, you know, your experience. Brains are formed. They're tabula rasa when you're a baby. They're not like, you know, all those neural pathways haven't been formed yet. So if you're thinking like a woman for 30 years and then you die, well, obviously your brain is going to be more alike to the way a woman thinks.
And we're still learning. Well, I'm getting that crazy echo again. Give that 1 second. Okay, that seemed to take care of it. We're still learning things about the human brain and the mind, for that matter, which are not exactly the same thing. We just recently learned that the lymphatic system has a direct connection to the brain. This was unknown before, right? But we're learning stuff about the physical structure of the brain. You know, within the past couple of years, new neurotransmitters have been kind of identified and understood. New hormones have been identified, and we're beginning to understand them. So there's still a lot we're learning about the physiology and the neurochemical processes that happen in the brain. Now, one thing I've noticed, did you ever read any of those Dr. Spock books when you were a young parent?
No.
Okay. Well, beyond those, there's if you know anything about psychology, a lot of the child psychology or developmental psychology, some of this original work was done by a guy named Piaget, right? French guy. And he breaks down these different classifications of development, you know. So on average, a child between this and this age, you know, will begin to develop object permanence, and then will begin to develop self-awareness, and then we'll pass through this learning phase, and then we'll become capable of abstract thought. So there's these different phases of human development, right? And Piaget kind of categorized them into these, you know, these broad forms and gave them broad ranges. Obviously, not every child, you know, hits the same points at the same time. Rhaegar Targaryen, Jean Piaget. Yeah, or Jean Piaget. Yeah, exactly. What I'm seeing now, and hopefully I'm not going too far afield here, is I see people with their children that are like 5 or 6 saying, we're going to raise this child without a gender. We're not going to assign a gender. We'll allow the child to decide themselves, allow, you know, genderless, or, you know, my 6-year-old child feels like that he is a she or she is a he, and vice versa. And the problem is these aren't even close to being fully developed human beings, not even close. And there is an age, there is a window of time where normal children that are not terrified or estranged from their parents, where they look at their parents with almost godlike status, right? They're looking to you. You can do no wrong. You're this ultimate authority, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we all have this encoded in us. You know, we want the approval. We want the approval of our parents. And so God gave us the capacity to observe mood and pick up on language and body language. And most normal children that haven't been the victims of abuse, you know, or are not suffering from some sort of autism spectrum disorder, they look for and they seek to please their parents. You know, I know this starts to change, you know, somewhere around 9, 10, 11, whatever, when they become tweens and they become teenagers, and, you know, children start to rebel at that age. I get it. But there's this range of time, like once after they get out of the terrible twos, somewhere between 3 and 9, where our parents are just like amazing figures of authority and wonder, and they're heroic, and we want to please them, and we look to them, and we're trying to gauge their response, and we're trying to please them, right? And so these people, some of these Portland weirdos and some of these other places that are talking about suspending the hormonal development of their kids, and you see these kids, man, they're treating them like science projects.
Lab rats.
And do these 6-year olds really want to be trans or this or that? Or are they taking their cues from some of these parents and trying to satisfy these strange urges from their parents to transform their children, right? To transform these small undeveloped people that they have this sacred responsibility to, and transform them into some sort of virtue signal, some sort of accessory, right? To show
In a
their
right
friend.
thinking society, in a proper, not right wing, a right thinking society, those children will be taken away from those parents.
Yeah. But that's kind of where we're getting, though. I mean, it's but as this stuff gets normalized, the idea, you know, that a 6-year-old can make or a 7-year-old can get this idea, and then doctors should engage in some sort of pharmaceutical intervention to suspend their hormonal development and their physical and mental development as a normal person. This is insanity.
It is.
But yeah, there may be something to like what you said. We learn a lot. We learn a lot from role models, or role models in a very traditional sense, are where we learn a lot of behaviors, the way to conduct ourselves, the way to speak, the way to act, the way to respond, right?
That's why they're called role models.
And so I was. This is in some ways.
You know what?
Go ahead.
You know, that's why they're called role models.
Yeah.
Like literally, and that goes back to what I was saying about how she, Audrey learned her role, identified with the role of the nurturer, as a little girl should identify with the nurturer, but the nurturer was her father, not her mother. Her mother's very cold, like rigid, type A, you know, and then the father was like a stay-at-home dad. Stay-at-home dad. He was the cook. He was the, clean the house. He did all the mother. I mean, he loved staying at home, being Mr. Mom, but he very much took the mother's role in the house. I mean, emotionally as well. And so I can totally understand a little girl identifying with that, and then thinking, oh, well, then I'm clearly in the wrong body, And I have compassion on that, but don't try to tell me it's biological, because your brain is biological and your body is biological, and they should agree. But if your brain disagrees with your body isn't wrong.
Yeah, and there's a couple things you'll learn. Um, the mind the mind follows the body follows the mind. They can change each other. You know, like a simple thing like being hangry, right? You have a low blood sugar, and you're and you can be upset. Your mental state changes. Um, but yeah, your mind to some degree is a derivative of your biology, and your biology your biology is relatively immutable. You can make these cosmetic changes. And hang on, let me take a pause here because I want to make sure everybody is understanding me clearly. Disagree with some of these people. I have empathy and sympathy, maybe sympathy. I don't know what it feels like to feel like I don't belong in my own body, right? I have sympathy for people who feel like their identity doesn't line up with their physicality. That must be a horrible thing. And we should always endeavor to treat people with as much respect as they allow us in any given situation and as much kindness as they allow us in any given situation. Right? So don't read anything into what we're saying. Right? You should never disrespect somebody or show somebody unkindness just for the sake of it. Right?
Correct. You're correct, sir.
All right. Now,
Pixel Trader said this conversation hits a little too close to home. Do you want to elaborate on that, Pixel?
and then I think I had something from one of our moderators. I'm not sure what Pope Fire was asking me a question. Oh, one thing I was going to say, talking about role models. Um, so I had a great dad. He went off the rails when I was a teenager, but I had a great dad. Grew up listening to all his army stories. And he would take me along with him. We'd go to a radio station. When I was a kid, I was a weather boy. Me and my father would do a gospel music program on Sundays, and I was the weather boy, and go everywhere with him. And then I also spent a lot of time with my grandfather, who was on Normandy. Yeah, he was there at the invasion. He had a fairly highly decorated. He didn't have a silver star, but he had two bronze stars, one with a V device. And I grew up listening to his stories and learning certain models of masculinity and certain ideas about interacting with people and showing politeness to people and self-reliance, different things, right? You get these things from your models of either masculinity or Carrie Lewis, Mama sang bass, Daddy sang tenor, me and little brother fit right in there, singing in the family choir. Yes, I get that reference. Um, but yeah, we learn a lot of the way we learn how to be people. We absorb from the adults in our lives, right? Your fathers, your grandfathers, or the other adults around, and then some of it you get from from your peers, right? I imagine a lot of your bad habits or a lot of the trouble you got into because of the kids you were spending time, away from adult eyes doing dumb stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So these are all the different ways that we absorb and develop what becomes our identity, coupled with our unique biology. And these things establish who we are. Now, add to that um, particular environmental stressors or environmental factors. Like, you ever heard of something called hormeosis?
No.
Hormeosis is an idea that you expose something to a certain amount of stress, but not too much stress. It may make it stronger. Too much stress can damage people, damage your DNA. Right? Can shorten some of your markers, or there's certain strands, a certain section. What is it called? escapes me. But it's like a little marker for DNA that kind of, when that wears out, you're pretty much done. So two people could be the same age, but genetically someone could be much, much older. Telomeres. That's what I was trying to remember. Telomeres. All right. And then in our environments now,
Right over here.
In our environments, we're exposed to all kind of chemicals, right? Like atrazine, turning the cyber frogs into making the cyber frogs want to eat pie. Yeah. But there's all kind of there's all kinds of stuff even in just our normal diets, that like your great grandfather wasn't exposed to. Like people before the 1900s, right? Were never exposed to these particular synthetic chemicals.
Yeah. Or what's that? Bromine.
Bromine.
Coming from the
Well, if you look at the periodic table, bromine, right, is yeah, in that particular thing, bromine, iodine, halogen. I forget what that particular sector is. I wouldn't doubt we have a chemistry nerd in our chat, and somebody will be able to tell us.
It's from the chemtrails. I was trying to go down the
The chemtrails.
The chemtrails, bromine and the aluminum in the atmosphere coming down.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And then the way we eat has been changed. All right. So what I'm getting at, we don't need to go too far down that path.
Yeah.
Is there's all these different things that affect who we are and may change who we become because of physical and physiological and chemical. And somebody was even talking about PSD, and very stressful events can, definitely affect our mental state and our mental processes in a very permanent fashion, right? Because one of the mechanisms with PTSD, it is almost like overetching these memories, these very powerful memories into the mind, and this is a good transition into Maniac. I think you think about how memory is stored in the brain, and we're still understanding this. People with PTSD have something, it's almost like somebody has scratched the record, right? And every time it loops around, it's going to hit that thing, and every time you're going to hit it, and they can't help it, so people often say to, people who have PTSD, well, why don't you just let it go? Just let this thing go and it'll be okay. But that's not how that memory is coded in there. It is coded in such a way that it's overburned into the brain, and every time somebody experiences this memory again, it evokes some of these emotions, some of the anxiety and the inability to cope with wherever they're at a certain moment, because it's just so hard coded. Now,
well, not to lose your train of thought, but a good friend of mine was a SWIC. I don't know if you know what a SWIC is.
Go ahead.
SWCC. It's Navy Special Forces. They're like above the SEALs. Like 9 out of 10 SEALs ring out of becoming SWICs.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine was a SWIC, and he's not naked. So he, we went outside and we talked about, some of the stuff that he had done, in the name of staying alive in bad situations. And, he's got PTSD because of it, obviously.
Right.
And he's like, super straight dude, would never, I mean like alcohol wise and drink it. I mean, he might have a beer or something like that, but he would never do drugs or never do anything like that. He's like always like about health and all that stuff. And, but the drugs that the VA were giving him were just turning him into a zombie, right? To try to deal with his PTSD. And you want my phone? And so some of his other like SEAL and SWIC buddies, they're like, they told him to use pot.
Mm.
And yeah, where are you? the thing about pot, at least I don't know if it's every strand, but the thing about it is it gives you tunnel vision, right? So you can only focus on one thing. And so those stray thoughts that come in and ruin your day when you have PTSD because you can't let them go,
Right.
They don't have room to get into your thought processes. And so it's like it's not the only reason I'm for the legalization of medical marijuana, at least. But I mean, I'm a libertarian, so I think people have the right to kill themselves with whatever substance they want. If you want to be an idiot, feel free. But in this particular case, I'm like, I'm very much for that being because of my friend and his situation and the absolute, need that he has for that, because otherwise he'd just be like a zombie on these crazy prescriptions. And yeah, sorry for the tangent, but
No, it's not. It's not. And PTSD is a good example. And usually PTSD is associated with very strong or reoccurrent negative, highly negative, emotional experiences. And so what's happening when this stuff is encoded, probably people are in a heightened state of arousal. They're probably in a fight or flight state. They're probably usually under extreme duress, and you've got all kinds of chemical processes going on in the brain that we don't even fully understand, and this stuff gets hard coded. And PTSD doesn't come just from military service or combat. It can come from some negative events, being in some sort of disaster, being a victim of domestic abuse, or all kinds of things can create PTSD. We most commonly associate it with soldiers, but that's not what it's all about. But the thing is, though, this memory, this encoding in the brain creates a different perception of reality, because when someone's experiencing that, they're not experiencing what's in front of them. So the things that they're perceiving don't, and the strength of the emotional experience or the anxiety that's provoked by the PTSD don't actually match up with what's happening around them right there at that moment, right? So what a person is experiencing doesn't sync up with the reality that's currently around them. Not generally. I mean, there's triggers for stuff, but it's out of sync, right? It's out of sync. So people might be having this incredibly anxiety, out of their skin experience, and there may be normalcy all around them, right? There may have been some sort of trigger, but usually you get a mismatch. So in Maniac, in the Netflix story, you're told that these people are coming in, the candidates are coming into a late stage medical experiment, the late stage trials of a medical experiment. And they don't make it completely clear, but it appears to have two components. One component appears to be some sort of magnetic or electronic induction, some sort of machines, kind of like a CAT scan or an MRI, that are interacting directly with the brain, and then maybe a pharmaceutical component. And we might not be that far away from this, because there's recent research, and I wish I had pulled this stuff up. But one, with MRIs now, they can pull out, and it takes a lot to set up, and you couldn't just walk around and do this. But they're now able to pull out of your brain, like if someone is intensely thinking of something, they can pull out a number or pull out a word out of your brain.
What does that mean?
Meaning they can use a combination of MRIs and stuff, and look in other sensors and look at specific regions of your brain, and they can determine a word or a number that you're thinking about.
Really?
Yes.
No kidding.
Yes. Now, along with that, there's been some experience using some electromagnetic induction where they've been able to alleviate certain forms of depression, right? And perhaps induce some other um, sensations in the brain. Because, our brains, our brains are complex, but they're a combination of electrical impulses over and above the soul. I'm just talking about the meat of the brain.
Right.
You've got these electrical impulses and these neurochemical processes, right? And if you interfere or adjust with that, it can absolutely change how you're currently experiencing a situation. And so there's a point where if this technology gets developed enough and the way memories are encoded and are transmitted or understood well enough, it is theoretical that through electromagnetic induction with some other stuff, I could make you perceive something that's not actually happening.
And a little bit of LSD.
Yeah. But maybe more targeted, where
Right.
if I had a sophisticated enough AI system and it could generate stuff on the fly, I could make you imagine that maybe you're driving down the highway, right? And I could in your nervous system, I could send the proper signals to give you those various senses of pressure and motion, right?
Hmm.
And give you the auditory experience, and you would have no way, you would unless the presentation was flawed in some way, you would have no way you would have no way of knowing that you weren't there. It would be similar to, you remember the Matrix?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I imagine your brain would just fill in the gaps.
Yeah, and I imagine that's what happens a lot of the time. We aren't consciously processing all this stuff around us.
Yeah.
So
Have you ever tried lucid dreaming?
only moderately. I'm usually very conscious and aware that I'm dreaming after, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
I'm very It's very rare that I'll have a nightmare. Usually I'll have like an irritating dream. But I'm usually very conscious that I'm dreaming.
Well, I do it occasionally, especially when I can't sleep.
Right?
Um, I will just I will just lay in a perfectly still state, and I'll ignore like the little itches and the little things that come up, because every time you move your body, it wakes your brain back up,
Mm.
right? And so what you're trying to do is fool your brain into thinking that your body's asleep, and then you start getting like images. Images start coming in your mind. But when you're conscious, and this process starts um, happening, you can tell that the images aren't like fully formed, right? You can
Mm.
see things happening, but it's almost like you're looking through a glass darkly. It's like shadow forms moving, and you can tell, you know what they are. It's like, that's a horse, even though it's like blocky and whatever. It's like sort of like really low resolution dreaming,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
And then the further you get in deeper into it, like once you're completely into dreaming, it's like when you wake up from a dream and you're like, you couldn't tell the difference between reality and your dream until you like woke up, right? Because like I was saying, the mind fills in the gaps. But that's what I was saying about that, or where you could possibly make suggestions to the mind, and the mind creates the reality around the suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I like
that,
doing this. So.
and so to me, when we were kind of looking at that, we both kind of looked at the Maniac preview earlier, right?
Mhm.
There's a point. There's a point where you could get to this position once the technology gets far enough along. You would not be able to perceive the difference. You couldn't tell if what you were experiencing was reality or not, right? How would you?
Right. Like scanners.
Like scanners, like the Matrix, yeah. And so it leads to a really weird state, which coupled with what we've seen happening the last couple of days, where the government in some places is shutting stuff down, and corporations in the United States are controlling what can and cannot be transmitted, and we become the amount of information that's controlled by a relatively few number of peoples, a really few number of corporations, is kind of massive. I mean, I think 1/3 of all traffic goes through Google. Facebook has a massive amount of traffic and tracks all kinds of things. YouTube is.
You are just reminding me of something. Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
Yeah, go ahead.
But what happened to Alex Jones is exactly why I have an email list. At some point, someone controlling something is going to look at the stuff that I just said or something I'm going to say in the future, and they're going to have moved the bar so far to the left that a perfectly innocuous, innocent statement is going to read as hate speech to them, and they're going to shut down my ability to connect with all of these people. There's 137 people watching right now. Every one of you should be, if you're not already, go into the description, get down there, sign up to my email list. I don't spam. I think I've used it 2 or 3 times since I started it. But it's so that if anything, it's like an emergency pull cord. You know, if anything ever happens, YouTube just wants to just shut me down the way they did Alex Jones, the way they did, well, not so much Steven Crowder. They just demonetized him. But they could do it to him any minute, right? They could do it to any of us any minute because there's no controls on them because this is a private corporation. That's a whole nother conversation. Hey, the cats.
Yeah, it would be a shame to lose touch of people because we have some amazing people that stop by and talk with us, and we have some amazing people in the Lone Star Squadron. And so, yeah, if you are on Facebook, and I understand some people don't like it, but if you're on there, please do join the Facebook group. Please do join the mailing list. Something I do in the Lone Star Squadron Facebook group, it allows me to actually do lives right in there. So sometimes I'll just hop in there and talk right to the squadron, and that's kind of fun.
So back to the premise of the question that the Netflix show.
Okay, so yeah, let's restate the premise. If something was wrong with you, right? You had some sort of cognitive dysfunction, or you had some sort of psychological dysfunction. Maybe it's anxiety disorder. Maybe it's gender dysmorphia. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe some kind of psychosis. Something is wrong with your mind. And a medical professional came forward, or a corporation came forward and said, "We can fix you, right? We can give you this pill. We can put you through this process, and we can fix your mind." Would you do it?
Would you do it?
No. No. Because I am a combination of my virtues and flaws, and I think if I was subjected to these processes, I would no longer be me.
Right. Now, put yourself in the position of someone with like gender, what was it, dysphoria?
Yeah.
Early in life, when you're struggling with this and you're trying to come to a conclusion about it, and you knew that you have a tenfold chance of someday killing yourself because of it, right? It's a 40% compared to like 4% of the population who tried to commit suicide at some point. 40% of people of trans people try to, or want to commit suicide, or however it works, or successfully do. I'm not sure what the 40%, but it's 4 times as bad. I mean, 10 times as bad.
Right.
And you realize that through accepting this issue into your own life. I don't know. I don't know the right wordage, and yeah. I'm sure I'm going to offend somebody. So whatever. I'm just trying to get a point across. And knowing that because of this, you will more than likely not ever have your own biological children, right? I mean, there's a series of sacrifices one has to make in order to go down this road, right? I mean, you're going to fully commit. Not like Caitlyn Jenner, who decided he was a lesbian in a man's body, right? You're like committed. You're the whole shooting match. If you're at a young enough stage, do you think you would have take the pill at that point? Before you've done it for 10 or 20 years and you've accepted it, and like Mags said, it's so much of who I am now that I wouldn't do it. Well, that's why I was wondering if you went to Mags at 13 years old or 16 or 20 or wherever, whenever she decided, he at the time was going down this road and had the foresight to think of all the problems it was going to cause, would young Mags or young whoever take that pill? And is there an answer? I guess.
You know, it's so hard. I just can't imagine being somebody different.
Yeah, I know. I agree. And for that, I understand what Mags is saying too. Because like I always say, I wouldn't change anything in my life, even the worst decisions I've made, because of who I am and where I am now. I wouldn't risk any of that.
When I was a kid, when I was a young teenager, I had very bad migraines, incredibly intense migraines, and they prescribed these essentially narcotic painkillers for me just because they were so severe. And I took them for about 2 weeks, and then I stopped because the painkiller was changing who I was. Right? I wasn't that person anymore. I was dialed down from the painkiller, so I stopped. And I learned to turn down the pain, right? Learn to cope with it, and then realized, okay, there's a signal here, and I can listen to it or not listen to it, but I can tune it down, and the pain began to fade.
You became Dalton from Roadhouse. Pain don't hurt.
Your choices, your mental choices, and I understand that sometimes we get in a position where we're no longer capable of pulling ourselves back out of that particular hole, right? But what you choose to focus the brain on, and the attitude that you choose to cultivate in yourself, can dramatically affect who you are and how you experience life. This is what I tell some people. If you're depressed, moderately depressed, if you're sad, if you're unhappy with life, make a concerted effort to experience and perceive gratitude. Right?
Yes.
Don't wait for good things to happen. Just go ahead and decide that you are going to greet whatever comes your way that day with a spirit of gratitude and thanks, and thanks in general, but thanks in specific to God and our Creator and our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And it'll change your life. Cultivating an air of gratitude and thanks for the things that come your way and the people around you will change your life. Now, there's levels to this. If you're waking up every day and somebody is beating the tar out of you, I get it. If you're in a combat situation every day, I get it. Right? There's only so much that can be shifted, and not everybody has this capacity. Not everybody's going to be like the Apostle Paul and so forth. I get I get it. But for most of us living in relatively normal conditions in modern first world situations, there are these decisions we can make about how we experience the world that can profoundly change our lives. And one of these is cultivating a spirit of gratitude.
It's it's interesting that if you take the Lord's Prayer, you know, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Gratitude. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Confession. Take away the rest of it because it's based on. I mean, I don't want to take away the rest of it. What I'm trying to do is get to every day when I pray four things. I worship, I thank, right? I worship and I thank. That is gratitude. Mm-hmm. I confess, and then I pray for other people, and then I pray for myself. But these two things are, you know, they're how Jesus taught us to pray, right? Right in the Lord's Prayer. That's what he was saying. This, you know, these are the two things that are functional about the Lord's Prayer, not relational necessarily, but functional. Gratitude, if you are content, thankful, not just content, thankful for whatever you have, whether it is a piece of bread or a stone to lay your head on or $1 million mansion. Oh, nowadays, a $10 million mansion. The house in San Diego.
Yeah.
If you are thankful, and I mean that changes a person's entire ability to be happy, functionally a happy human being, right? Yes. And then confession. If you are able to look at your own life critically and say, these are the things that I've been doing wrong, these are the things that I need to work on, and you focus on that every day, daily you are thankful, daily you look at what you've done wrong. Just functionally, those two keys can make you a better person and a happy person, whether you are religious or not, whether you believe in Jesus or not. Those two things are functionally the best two things that any person can do on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yes. So even if you don't, even if you believe, even if to you, if religion and faith is foolishness, cultivating cultivating an era of gratitude will not only change you, but change the people around you, right? Because when you encounter people, they're not always at their best. You know, people have come to you, and we've become, most people that live in cities and in urban areas have become scurrysome creatures upon the earth, right? We're rushing to do this, and then we rush over here to do this, and we eat our dinner too quickly, and we're absorbing too many things, and we're being exposed to too many stressors, and we're scurrying here and fro all over the place, right? And so when you encounter a person, they may be experienced like so many stressors. They may have had somebody who cut them off in traffic, who gave a mean look. Maybe somebody said something mean to them on Twitter, and then they finally arrive at you, and now you have a chance to interact with them. So you have a chance to change their life for the better with your spirit of gratitude, right? So it changes not just ourselves, but the people around us. And so it's kind of a force multiplier. And if enough of us make that determination, right, to meet the world and greet the world with a spirit of gratitude and the people we interact with, I don't know if we can change the world, but we can change a part of it.
You know what? The world is just a bunch of people.
Yeah, exactly.
Change one person, and you change one piece of the world, and you just keep doing that every day. At some point, hey, you may have changed enough people to start a virus that changes the world. Pay it forward, so to speak.
So this is bringing it back around to young Mags, right? If Mags had If Mags had grown up in a household that had ideal patterns that helped somebody line up, help their mind develop in such a way that it lined up with her physical biology, right? It had these role models and it had somebody interact and guide them and help them. I've rarely encountered, and maybe it's just because I've not met a whole lot, but I've rarely encountered some of these transgendered people seem to be raised in environments where it's not a functional level. Like it's either everything is either too strict or it's too loose. Um, it's not that functional level that breeds self resilience, right? And reliance and a healthy sense of their own identity and their place in the world. So these people seem to be left adrift. Like there was one transgendered person who was harassing diversity in comics. Who was that? Was it Michelle Perez, the person who made that pervert comic for Eric Larson and Image? Yeah, I think it was Michelle Perez.
That sounds familiar. I didn't follow too much.
Yeah, and if I recall correctly, her father was somebody in the Marine Corps, and she was talking about her life and so forth, and the person wound up as a sex worker. And I'm just thinking, like, you've subjected yourself or have been subjected to all of these patterns, right? All these patterns and these stressors that don't lead to a healthy sense of identity or to a resilient identity and a self-reliant and resilient ideal sense of self and so forth with various tools to cope with stuff. I didn't really realize this until I got older, but one pattern I noticed when I was a non-commissioned officer, when I was a sergeant in the United States Army, I got to the point where I could almost tell if somebody came from a single parent household or if they came from a nuclear family.
Nuclear family.
Just because the level of home training was different and the way that they dealt with problems and dealt with others was different. Their self-esteem was different. I mean, you could see how much effect that one simple thing, having a father and not having a father present, and to establish boundaries and set patterns, how much that shaped people's ability to cope with life after that. Oh, there is one thing I've got to do. Somebody called a Lone Star Squadron home. All right. So let me give you a warning. If you're wearing headphones right now, yeah, you might want to turn them down. Okay. You might want to pull them away from your ears or tune your volume down. I'm going to give you a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lone Star Squadron, ho! Right. I think I just scared my dog. Yeah, when the Lone Star Squadron ho gets called, at least once a stream, we have to recognize the squadron.
That man knows how to call down. Countdown. Yeah.
Interesting how things overlap. The interesting thing, though, is now the number of people that grow up in intact families is roughly equivalent to the people who grow up in fractured families or non-intact families.
It's almost as if what's his face? Quayle was right. Vice President Quayle.
Oh yeah. They mocked him.
Oh yeah, they crucified him for it
Viciously.
Yep. For those who are not old enough to remember, was his first name Donald? No. Dan Quayle. Vice President Dan Quayle in 19 89, 90, 89, something like that.
Yeah, right
There was
around in there.
a show called Murphy Brown.
Hmm. They're bringing that back.
I know. And it was the first time on TV. Gosh, this makes us sound like old fogies. It was the first time that there was a single mother being portrayed on like broadcast TV,
Yep.
and it was a big deal. And Dan Quayle was vocal about, hey, you know what? We should not glorify single motherhood and promote it as if it's something to aspire to, because that's what she was doing. I can do anything that you can do better. I can be a single mother. I don't need a father. And now look where we are, 20 years later.
And this is not to insult.
30 years. 30
This
years.
is not to insult anybody, but we know statistically that children of single parents or unintact parents are more likely to be incarcerated. They're more likely to experience anxiety and behavioral disorders and other psychological orders. They are less likely. They are going to have a statistically lower educational attainment. I think I already said they're more likely to be incarcerated, and on average, they will have a lower economic attainment. And guys, I understand there's differences, and you say, hey, my single mother did a great job, and I make six figures, so I don't know what yeah. I'm talking about on average and statistically. That children of single parents face challenges that children from healthy, intact families do not face.
Right. And that's not to cast aspersions on anyone who's forced into that situation. The point was that, Dan Quayle's like, let's not, because in the show it was a choice. She did not want a father involved or to be married or whatever. And it was like, it was glorifying the choice of being a single mother. And it's terrible when your husband dies or leaves you, or any other number of things happen, and you wind up a single mother due to bad circumstances. But to go out and purposefully have a child without the father's involvement, you're doing a disservice to that child. And there's no two ways about it. And,
Chad is telling us we have a troll. Now, Chad, you've got a choice here, though. You've got a choice. If we need to deal with the troll, we'll deal with the troll. But you can also decide if you want to react to what the troll is saying, right? We can't change what other people do, but to some degree, we can decide if we're going to react to it. If we need to time them out, we can. You always. Well, now they're talking about some Satan stuff, so I'm not very happy about that. So maybe we do need to put Flat Earth Mage in a timeout.
You all wish magic was fake until you stopped following Satan.
Yeah, that's kind of different.
I don't know what the heck he's talking about.
Yeah, Jiminy, I'm going to let you deal with that. You take a look at it. I'm not paying that close attention, but if it's significantly impacting people's experience, then you can time them out, and that's okay.
Deal with it, man.
Yeah.
Load the trebuchet.
In just in case you're new here, we're absolutely willing to tolerate differences of beliefs and differences of opinion, but within our family, I don't know that we want people to have to tolerate any particular trolling or abuse in their time here in the Aloha Hour. That's not what it's for.
It's not a time for hate or trying to get people riled up. This is the chill hour of the YouTube day.
Mama sing bass, daddy sing tenor, me and little brother fit right in there. Singing, every time I sing a song, my dog thinks I'm singing for her, and she comes and sings me. Where you at, Wiggles? Look at you waggling your tail. She's a good girl. She's a boxer, maybe mixed with, I don't know, maybe a terrier. My wife thinks terrier. I think maybe a goat. I'm not certain. So we got these wicker chairs, and she's been eating our furniture during the day. Um, yeah, so I think part goat maybe. What you working on, Mister Miller?
I was working on the double page spread. Finally started inking it.
You finally started.
Got it all penciled up.
Is this one at a shareable stage or?
What do you mean?
Okay, tilt the top of the image towards us just a little bit.
Hold on.
Here, let me go to Google Hangouts and I'll make sure we get focused. What do you think, Lone Star Squadron? You wanna see a little bit of art before we? Nice.
I mean, the guys who are watching me draw it today probably had a better view of it than this, but
Yeah, it's a little tricky to format it.
yeah.
Looks like somebody is getting shot up. Looks like a whole bunch of somebody's just getting shot up.
That's how they do. Yeah, it's funny. We're because I said how I had cellulose bullets, and my son's like, did you check that? Did you check that? Did you see if wood bullets fire? And I guess there are wood bullets, but they don't fire fast enough to reach the skin. And so I was like, oh, I'll just make the core of the bullet lead. Have like a, so it has a piercing lead. Oh, maybe silver, maybe even silver, maybe dual purpose. So that the core, and then it's like, a pencil. So it's encased in wood. And we found there's like some super crazy dense wood in Australia. So I can use this like particular kind of tree to make sure that the bullets they're like all crafted bullets. So they can pierce the skin, and then the cellulose can disrupt the cell structure from rebuilding. And so that's how they become deadly to vampires. I want ice cream. I do want ice cream.
All right, so let's do something since I think we're about an hour and a half in to the stream now, and it looks like we have some new visitors. So let's do a couple of things. One,
okay.
if you look on the description here, you should see a link for Mike's mailing list. Please sign up for the mailing list. If you're on Facebook, please join the Lone Star Squadron official fan group. We're posting stuff there every day. We have got the best moderator on Facebook, the Countess of Comicsgate. Lone Star itself. If you haven't signed up, if you haven't been to the Indiegogo yet, go take a look at the comic book on Indiegogo. It is beautiful, and we would love to have you be part of the Lone Star Squadron. I have read the script and the treatment, and it is a very fun comic book. Even with the stuff you've been given, there are a ton of surprises getting ready to come your way. There is plenty action in the comic book, and it's going to be beautiful. You can go see some of the early lettered pages. When is the gang member fight going to get colored? Because I want to see that colored, man.
I am waiting. I don't know. I haven't pressured him too much because I told him I wouldn't have money until the Indiegogo's over.
Right.
But that's next week, so he's probably busy on. I think he's still doing some coloring for Injustice on another one of the pencilers. But also, hey, stop. Also, there's probably a lot of new people coming in last couple days. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe. Ring the bell for notifications. Ice cream. And yeah, so please join this community. It's a great community. We're pretty chill at night here. I'm usually shooting my mouth off about something during the day while I'm drawing. I got a little irritated today about Alex Jones, actually. But I don't want to rehash that right now.
Right.
If you want to watch it, it's on the earlier stream from today.
Right.
But
what was I going to say? If you're on Twitter, make sure you follow Mike on Twitter. If you don't get the notification on Facebook, or excuse me, on YouTube for these streams, we always tweet it out on Twitter. And then let me share the. I'm gonna share my screen for a moment, if that's all right.
Yeah.
All right. So this is Lone Star, Heart of the Hero. Okay. And let's see, how many pages is the initial offering going to be? Lone Star, Heart of the Hero, an ex-soldier turned government super agent, fights for the innocent against the darkest evil. How many pages is the initial offering going to be, Mike?
48 pages of story.
48
and then
pages of story.
Another 8 pages of peripheral stuff.
Okay. And that includes thanks to the Lone Star Squadron and maybe some different art and maybe some preview of the nuclear family. Is that possible?
It's entirely possible.
Okay. So we got 5 days left. So far, the squadron has contributed 45,576, which is great. But it would be better if we could get that up a little bit further, because that means we'll get the next offering of Lone Star faster. It means we'll get to the nuclear family faster, and it will make life a little bit better for the Miller household and his family. Right? This is the way. It's our hobby. This is the way Mr. Miller earns his living and pays his mortgage and feeds all 52 of his kids. Right.
And at 50,000, I think I'm going to do the 50,000 stretch goal is the dog tags, since I got the numbers in today.
Oh, good.
It's feasible. It's feasible at 50,000 without me going broke.
So we're rolling through. Okay. Now, if you don't know the story behind Lone Star, the simplest way to describe it is either Captain America meets Van Helsing or Captain America meets Supernatural, the television show. Okay, Lone Star is in the tradition of the super soldier. He was a naval aviator in World War II. Now, in this version of the world, the Germans had essentially a super-powered, what do you call them? An Uber, what do you call them?
Ubermensch, the Iron Cross.
The Iron Cross, which was essentially this super-powered individual who was conquering Europe on behalf of the Nazis and the German army, right? And so Europe is on verge of falling. The United States has these experimental fighter jets, and Lone Star is one of these naval aviators who gets sent to take out the Iron Cross. They do so, but at great cost. Several of Lone Star's fellow aviators are killed. He himself is mortally wounded. He is on the edge of dying, and he's given a choice by the United States government. Would you like to participate in this experimental process? It may save your life. It does, but it changes him in some ways. It makes him as strong as a human male can be. Lone Star can bench press approximately 1,200 pounds. Okay, so he's very strong. Lone Star is what, about 6'2", Mike? About 225 pounds?
Yep.
Okay. So this happened. This happened in the 40s. When you read this comic book, we are now set in about 2005, 2002, somewhere in there?
2005, 2010, somewhere around there.
Yeah, somewhere in there. So approximately 60 years have elapsed. For all appearances, Lone Star has not physically aged, right? Since about 19, was that 45 or 42? And I apologize for not remembering the exact date
Um,
when he goes through the process.
yeah, gosh, I forgot the date too.
Yeah, early
Sorry,
1940s.
I don't
So
have actually
60 years later, he looks exactly the same. He is as strong as a human can be. He also is highly resistant to physical damage and can heal from wounds that would kill most people relatively quickly. And so he's not Wolverine, but he could potentially get up from a gunshot. Okay. Um, he is a highly trained and skilled, unarmed and armed combatant. What'd you say, Mike? He's probably a better fighter or a more skilled fighter than Captain America?
He's a more skilled fighter than Batman.
Than Batman. Well, there you go. Now, and the difference between Captain America and Lone Star is that he will use a gun, he will use a knife, he will kill under certain conditions. Okay. Or he's got another interesting feature, and we can scroll to that scene so I can show you. And here is Lone Star contesting with some supernatural looking creatures, something that looks awful lot like a vampire, and it looks like he's firing off that Desert Eagle right through this thing's mouth. What kind of pistol is that actually supposed to be?
I think it's more along the lines of a Browning.
A Browning. Okay, okay. All right. And so here we've got a black and white image of Lone Star knocking out Hitler. This may be apocrypha, but it sure does look nice. All right, scrolling on down. Scrolling on down.
Great
All
way
right.
to put it, by the way. That one.
And so if you look carefully here, you see Lone Star or someone hooked up to some sort of medical device. You see something that might be the Iron Cross, certainly looks like an Iron Cross, right? All right.
Yep.
Now, Lone Star, because of his experiences as a child, as an adult, because of the losses around him, he has a highly developed sense of obligation to the world, to the country, to the people around him, right? And so he has a particular sense that allows him to sense fear. And Lone Star can tell the difference between the fear of the innocent and, like, maybe me and you are watching a scary movie, he can tell the difference. And when he senses fear, it's a combination of almost like a smell or a perception, but it gives him a directional sense of where that person experiencing fear is. So even though he and the unknown soldiers are tasked with fighting the nation's threats, right? They fight this shadow war against some of these apparently supernatural creatures, what appears to be vampires and such. That's their actual job. And they do this kind of out of sight of normal humanity. When he's done with that, he goes out every night in whatever city he happens to be in, and he endeavors to protect the innocents. And he does this through his ability to sense fear. And here's a scene with him squaring off with some kind of scary street gang here and rescuing this young lady. And that is Lone Star. Now, if you haven't bought in yet, let's see. We've got some interesting packages. Now, there's one package called Lone Star for the troops. If you get this, you will get, is it 2 copies of Lone Star?
Yeah, one
You'll
of each
get
cover.
one of each cover. And then how many copies will get sent to the USO?
A minimum of 5. I'm pretty sure I'll be able to send more. The printing shouldn't be that much, but I'm thinking I'll probably be able to send like 10. When all is said and done. But I didn't want to overpromise and then underdeliver, so I underpromised so that I can overdeliver.
Okay. There is one package at $5. Now, you might like what we're doing. You might enjoy listening to us. Uh, but you don't want the comic book for whatever reason, or you can't afford it, but you want to contribute to something to Mike, the Lone Star Squadron membership is a good place to jump in. And I think that may also allow you to upgrade at a later time. So it can also act
You want
a
to hear
little
something
bit
funny?
like a layaway. Yeah.
Want to hear something funny? The guy that won my drawing,
Yeah.
that's what all he had was he got the
Oh,
$5.
good for him. Good for him.
And he won the drawing.
Oh, good for him. All right, for $15, you can get the digital comic version. So you won't get a printed one, but you'll get the digital comic version. Now, sometimes some people try and reconcile themselves to these prices because you're saying, get I can go get a Marvel comic book for I guess $5 now. What is it? $3.99? Well, I guess $4 or more, depending on what it is. You're not just purchasing a comic book, you're actually financing the comic book being made, right? This is what you're
Right.
doing. You're helping pay for something new to come into creation, and not just this, right? Mike's goal is to bring the Blacklist universe into existence. So continuing offerings of Lone Star, and then adding in various other artists and other people to create this whole new company that offers quality and for the most part wholesome comic books. Some stuff is aimed at adults, some stuff is aimed at children, but the plans are more than just making a single solitary comic book. Okay, $15 will get you the digital version. For $20 plus shipping, you can get a physical comic, right, with cover A, right? And how much is shipping?
$8 in the United States and $15 outside of the United States.
And $15 outside of the United States. If I was outside of the United States,
I saw some of the other guys were doing $10 worldwide, but I think it felt like they were subsidizing the foreign sales with the local sale, domestic sales.
Right.
And I figured, 95% of my sales are going to be domestic, so I might as well try to just keep it as cheap for them as possible. So sorry if you live in Canada or somewhere where it might technically be cheaper to send international, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. I did lower the price on the initial price of the book to compensate for it if you don't want it signed. So
and again, sorry for the protracted sales orientation. It's just that we've got a lot of new people joining us, and just wanted people to see what's available and get an understanding of what Mr. Miller is trying to accomplish with Lone Star and with the Blacklist universe.
be quiet. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Miller, we're coming up on 2 hours. You think this is a good point to start wrapping it up?
Yeah, let's do that. Anybody got anything? You should have a digital and physical comic combo. I would upgrade for that. I like having both. I keep forgetting to do that. I just have so many tiers already. Okay, they're just arguing in the chat. So
let's see. Dennis Peruch says when Lone Star push-ups, he's not pushing himself up. He's pushing the earth down. This is true.
Right. So yeah, well, I guess we can wrap this up. Just want to thank everybody for being here, especially any new people who came in. I hope you enjoyed the experience of the Aloha Hour. We are here pretty much every night, just chilling out, talking comics, talking faith, talking topics of the day, whatever it is. Sometimes you guys in the chat will bring up a topic and we'll just run with that. Sometimes we have guests. Sometimes it's just he and I. Sometimes it's me waiting for him to show up. No. But it's a good time. A lot of people say this is their favorite hour and a half, 2 hours of the day. So I appreciate everyone who feels that way, and we'll try not to let you down.
Absolutely. And for most part, we'll try and leave you better we'll try and leave you, send you leaving out of here better than we found you. And I hope everybody has a beautiful evening, a beautiful day. I don't know if it's morning for most of you now or late at night, but I hope you're able to experience and to express that gratitude to the day that finds you and the world around you and you yourself. I hope you're able to leave the people that you encounter and you interact with. Hope you're able to leave them better than you found them yourself. And hope God blesses you and your family.
Absolutely. God bless everybody. Mahalo, aloha, and have a great night.
Lone Star Squadron
Lone Star.
dismissed.
There you go.